Okay, now it's working. So good morning, everybody. As I started, I would like to thank Professor Kim for inviting me here. It's a pleasure. It's the first time in this university, and thanks for joining my presentation today. In a sense, the subject, my name is Stefano Passerini. I used to work in Germany till the end of last year, and I retired actually officially from the German professor system and moved back to Italy, which is the University of Rome, is my hometown. And what I will present today is it's kind of a possible approach, novel approach, and to be very honest, I started to think about it when I began a collaboration with the UNIST here in Korea about sodium seawater batteries, which at that time were kind of, in Korea maybe they were considered, but in the rest of the world this was a kind of chemistry or a kind of application that was not really very much interesting to both politicians, policymakers, as well as scientists. Anyway, I think I have to do like this. No, it doesn't work. This works. Okay. So a couple of years ago, the European Union actually decided to make this decision to decarbonize completely the Europe, okay? So not to use any fossil fuels anymore by the year 2050. That's a great, actually a great idea, but it has a lot of challenges associated, okay? And the main challenges is that obviously we need to secure energy, the energy needs for the people, the industry, for everybody, okay? And at that time, I mean, this is, most of the data refer to Germany, but this is actually the energy consumption in Germany. It's about split 1/3 between transportation, households, and industry. And then there is some left for mostly buying and sell electricity with the other countries around. Okay, but the point is that most of this energy is still coming from fossil fuels, especially in Germany, where they decided to step out of the nuclear power production after the Fukushima accident a few years ago. It's becoming a big problem, but in a sense it's also pushing for, because once Germany decided to get out of the nuclear power plant, they had to actually switch on again the coal power plants, and this is, I mean, most of the Germans do not really like this, okay? The pollution is becoming strong. So upon I would say the push from Germany, the entire European Union decided to move toward this transition to decarbonize Europe. If we look at, unfortunately the title is cut, I don't know if you can see it. So looking at the energy needs, I mean, there are these three main needs, which are transportation, residential, and industry. If you look at them, the one which has the fastest turnaround, it is actually transportation. I mean, usually a car lasts about 10 years, okay? A building lasts a little bit longer, and industrial processes might last even longer. So the first of these needs approached was actually transportation. And in this field, I would say that Europe did pretty well. A few years ago, I organized a meeting in Ulm. Actually, this was right before COVID, 3 months before COVID. And there were a good participation, people from the American Department of Energy, from Japan, NIDO, from China, from the German Ministry, the European Union. And coming out of all this consideration, we actually put down a plan of what was going to be the future of transportation. And I would say that so far, this report was written in 2019, 4 years ago, but so far we are definitely going in this direction. So the replacement of ICE cars with a battery-powered car is possible. It will require a huge expansion of the lithium-ion battery industry, a huge reconversion of the car industry, But this is already going in Europe. I mean, if you look at the numbers in Europe are becoming very impressive, okay? So VW now is reconsidering a little bit, but they have already a pretty ambitious target to reach 80% battery electric vehicle production in 5 years, 6 years from now, okay? I just read on the news a couple of days ago before leaving that VW will stop selling ICE cars in Norway from next year. Because practically in Norway, the people is only buying electric cars now. So there are countries in which this transition has occurred completely. Okay, but I didn't want to go farther ahead, actually. Other news, in a sense, good news, indicating the direction is the fact that, for example, the Tesla Model Y was the most sold car worldwide in the first quarter 2023. I mean, this is an pure electric vehicle. So it's clearly giving the direction, okay? And also, pretty important, the third number is that in August 23, 20% of the new cars sold in the EU were electric vehicles. I mean, these are big numbers now. And this will keep going. I have to say that surprisingly, the Asian countries which were stronger in battery production, initially they were very slow in transition to electric cars. I still remember friends of mine from Japan coming and asking, are you really going for electric cars in Europe? I mean, and this is definitely what has been happening. The next big market which is evolving is now the home storage. So this is actually the growth of the battery electric storage, stationary electric storage. And you can see that it's growing quite rapidly, okay? This is 2019, it's not long ago, okay? And this is the two last numbers are for the 2023. And it's impressive to see that in 1 year, the battery storage in Germany has increased by 100%, okay? And it will keep increasing very rapidly, and this is a huge market, okay? So very surprisingly, I mean, from May 23 to August 23, the stationary energy storage market has increased from 7.5 gigawatt hour to 9 gigawatt hour. Considering this kind of, and most of the driver for this is home storage. So these are the people, the same is happening in Italy now, to be honest. But these are people that have photovoltaic panels on their roof and they want to make a very good use of them, having this storage unit. And I mean, in 4 years, because this is the time span here, okay? In 4 years, practically the battery energy storage, it's now 25% of the hydropower storage that they have in Germany. So if the growth keeps going in this way, with this rate, in a couple of years, there will be more battery energy storage than hydropower energy storage. And this is really impressive. There is not much more space for hydropower in Germany, for example, but in Europe in general. Okay, so this is also being, let's say, addressed. So transportation is kind of done now. Okay, I visited Sweden a couple of weeks ago for the Electrochemical Society meeting, and practically the Volvo, Scania, I mean the Swedish truck or industrial vehicles producer, they switch on batteries also on big trucks, and even for long distances. Okay, so this is kind of, at least in Europe, decided. Okay. Residential will keep growing, but then residential no heating, because especially in the northern countries, obviously you cannot accumulate in batteries all the energy you need to warm up your house during winter. In Italy it's much easier actually, because we need more cooling than heating, but in Germany or in Sweden it would be extremely important. So we still need to address these two issues, I mean heating, okay, during winter, as well as the industry needs in terms of transportation. For the rest, let's say transportation as well as residential, most likely lithium-ion batteries or maybe sodium-ion batteries in the next few years can take this role. So in order to match with these needs and also to recover, let me say, or to compensate for the unfortunate Ukraine-Russia crisis, which has caused a lot of problems in Europe. I mean, last winter, all the Europeans were afraid that they could not have warm house during winter. Now they are much more relaxed because we managed to go through. But anyway, the European Union launched a new plan, this Repower EU, that in a sense means, okay, let's find a way to supply energy to Europe without using fossil fuels anymore. Okay, which is a rather, it is also matched by the mission innovation. This is more worldwide approach. Okay, it involves a lot of things, but mostly it deals with how do we produce energy and how do we make an efficient use of it. Okay, and this has been also integrated by another approach, that is the Critical Raw Materials Act. This is extremely important because Europe does not have many mineral resources. I mean, we get most of everything from China now, to be honest. Okay, not the ores, but at least the purified materials are coming. Most of them are coming from China. I don't know what is the situation in Korea. And then combining all this together, it is clear that we need to make use of renewable energy sources in terms of energy, but we also need to establish a huge energy storage system. So energy storage system which compares with the energy that is coming now from the fossil fuels. So it's really a huge new market. It doesn't exist. Okay, right now we use gas, we use oil. Some countries have nuclear for the baseline production, but we really need to invent a new market which does not exist yet. So in terms of energy, Europe is not really a big problem. We did some calculation, and I'm Italian, okay, so if we would cover Sicily, Sardinia, and half of Puglia, these three regions, we could generate, using only photovoltaic panels, we just cover the entire regions, okay? And we can produce more than the energy which is needed by the entire European Union in 1 year, okay? So getting renewable energies is not a problem. Wind is also, especially in the north part of Europe, there is a lot of wind energy available, okay? So getting enough energy is not an issue at all. The real issue is to be sure that this energy is available when we need it, okay? And for this, obviously, there are a lot of studies because in the meantime, the energy providers in Europe have acquired a lot of information about solar energy and also wind energy available. I have to say that I didn't see many windmills here in Korea, which is surprising because you have a lot of mountains, but I didn't see many. In Germany now, and I think Jon-Gil can tell you, the windmills are appearing like mushrooms, okay? So you pass on the same street the next day and there is another windmill appearing, okay? So they really have grown quite a lot, and now they start to have decent statistical numbers for the availability of energy and the distribution along the year, and the scale is becoming so big that you can average. I mean, before you had one windmill, this was a disaster because, I mean, if there is no wind in that area for a week, I mean, it's a disaster. But now there are 1,000 windmills, and there is some wind somewhere for sure, okay? And this is compensating. So to give you an idea, there is a kind of variation. Obviously, solar energy is exceeding during summer. It's 50% more than what we would need, but it's 50% less during winter. And this is actually changing depending on the location in Europe. So this is the center of Europe, Germany, let's say. North, these are the Sweden, Norway, Baltic countries. East is mostly Spain, France. and south is Italy, Greece, and you see that actually in the south there is much less fluctuation. It's much more stable because we get more sun than in the north. Okay, and the same is also for wind. And based on this, actually, on this fluctuation, we could actually kind of evaluate how much energy storage do we need to make it through next winter. Okay, so we took some numbers. This is the European primary energy consumption the year before COVID, or 2 years before COVID. It's just a reference number, which makes sense because anyway we are improving in energy saving in Europe. So it's not given for granted that we will keep increasing in energy consumption. We might stabilize to more or less that year. Okay. And then we can assume a reasonable number for energy storage cycle efficiency, the round trip efficiency. Because this is more or less the most optimistic number for the hydrogen long-term energy storage. Okay, so whenever there is excess renewable energy production, you transform it into hydrogen, you store hydrogen, and then you use hydrogen to generate electricity. And we even included in it kind of power grid losses, 5.8%, and it came out that actually the long-term energy storage demand to achieve the complete European Union energy independence is about 1,270 terawatt hour. Okay, this is a big number. Right? It's not a small number. I mean, it's really a big number. But it's not that unfeasible, as I will show you in a little bit later. So at the very end, for many years we have been debating in Europe more solar energy, more wind power, but actually what we need is more energy storage. Okay, and this is really the key to achieve the energy independence for Europe, but also for Korea, for example, and decarbonization and efficient use of renewable energy. Okay, so this is a sentence I really like because this guy, Oswald, is an electrochemist. More than 100 years ago, mentioned this. Although I've been 15 years in Germany, I still don't speak German, so I'll use the English translation. But he made this statement that the path leading to the solution of the most difficult of all technological questions, the delivery of cheap energy. So, I mean, this guy was really looking forward, okay? Must be discovered by electrochemists. And since I am an electrochemist, I try to do my best to achieve this. So when Europe decided to decarbonize and pushed, I would say, by Germany, they try to go for hydrogen. Hydrogen as an energy storage and carrier medium. Okay, the idea is good, no doubt. And the scenario to reach full decarbonization by the year 2050 means that we have to produce about 2,300 terawatt hour of hydrogen. Okay, so that's also a big number. Okay, 2,250 terawatt hour is needed. Okay, this means that we have to produce to keep on storage, this is the point, 50 megatons of hydrogen. Okay, which is a lot of hydrogen. Okay, 112 terawatt hours are needed only for buffering the electric grid. So we need to delocalize this hydrogen everywhere and buffer the electric grid when there are uncompensated consumption. Okay. And if we want to get smaller number, let's say that we want to be sure that we can make through with hydrogen in the next month, then we need to store 4.2 megatons of hydrogen. Megatons, it's really a lot. And just to give you an idea, if we consider hydrogen compressed at 700 bars, okay, this corresponds to 110 million cubic meter of hydrogen compressed. I mean, only hydrogen, not the gas tank around, not the building, okay? Or it is equivalent to 11 Tesla Giga Texas. Tesla Giga Texas is the second largest building in the world after the Boeing building, which is also in the US, okay? So these numbers are really big. So can we really make it? This has to be demonstrated. Right now, there are many problems actually associated with the hydrogen. Okay, that in fact, instead of 50 years of research and development and innovation, storage is still an issue. Okay, there are still technical hurdles for electrolyzer and fuel cells. Critical raw material, I mean, Europe would depend on Russia for a lot of catalysts for fuel cells and electrolyzers. Polymer electrolyte membrane fuel cells make use of polyfluoroalkyl compounds. I don't know if in Korea there is anything going on, but most likely Europe will ban the use of PFAs very soon. And I heard that Japan is going in the same direction. You know, these are the compounds which are called the never-ending compounds. So they are not destroyed by anything, but unfortunately they are not that good for us. They actually are absorbed by the small animals, and then they go through the whole food chain. So every single human now has polyfluoroalkyl in his air blood. Okay, so this is the reason why they want to ban them. Okay, hydrogen still has also other technical problems. For example, the direct combustion, the overall RTE, I mean, there are promises of 36%, but this needs to be demonstrated. And the very final problem is, who the hell wants to have 110 million cubic meter hydrogen storage in his backyard, okay? In Ulm, we had a hydrogen distribution station near to my office. I was not that happy, but I didn't complain. Okay, so are there other options for hybrid energy storage, possibly with high round-trip energy efficiencies and non-critical, non-toxic materials? And this is what we have been working also together with Yonggil in Ulm in the last few years. Okay, so the idea is actually started actually in the 70s of the previous century. It's nothing new. When the first oil crisis hit the world, in the US, they were seriously considering to switch to a different energy material, okay? So using renewables, accumulating, using electrochemistry, so reduction to produce metals and then burning metals, and then re-injecting the oxides into the production, okay? So it's nothing new. And a lot of these metals actually can store a huge amount of energy. I mean, all the metals for which you have to use a lot of energy to make them, they are actually very good energy storage medium, okay? And the other great advantage is that some of these metals are extremely abundant, okay? So sodium, magnesium, aluminum, silicon, calcium, titanium, I mean, they are extremely abundant. There is no problem. They are available everywhere. Sodium, I mean, wherever you have access to the seashore, the seaside, you have plenty of sodium, okay? Aluminum is the same. It's the second most abundant element on the Earth. This is, let's say, the most conventional energy storage or energy production systems or energy storage systems. And you see that, you know, they can be used for different terms, okay? And reactive metals actually can cover very well almost everything, except maybe the very low power, because obviously you need some kind of converter to produce the energy, and also the short term. And look that by short term we mean something up to minutes. Okay, it's not up to a day. So as I mentioned before, we calculated what is the amount of energy we need for the long term. So we need to keep this 1,200 terawatt hour on storage somewhere. Okay, we need the 110, 120 terawatt hour to balance the grid. So this we need distributed in Europe. And then for the intraday, so the day and night storage, we actually need about 30 terawatt hour for all over Europe, okay? So this is more or less, these are the needs of Europe for energy. And now if we actually look at how do we produce energy now? We burn combustible fuels, okay? are planning to go to hydrogen, extremely good gravimetric energy density, but as I mentioned before, the volumetric energy density is extremely low. A few years ago, there were people going around and saying, oh, we can store all the energy in lithium-ion batteries, and I was laughing crazy, obviously, because it doesn't make any sense trying to use lithium-ion batteries to store all the energy. But also liquid ammonia is not that efficient if you look at the numbers, okay? If you start to look at the metals, then you see that actually some of them are extremely good. I mean, boron, beryllium, I wouldn't use it, it's toxic, but definitely aluminum is interesting. It's extremely interesting. Aluminum, also silicon, and these two are extremely abundant on the Earth crust, so it's not a big problem. In particular, aluminum can give you about more than 30 times the volumetric energy density of lithium-ion batteries, and more than 8 times the volumetric energy density of liquid hydrogen, okay? So aluminum is definitely extremely interesting. That's these are in scale, okay? So this is the amount of aluminum you need to store to have the same amount of energy you need to store to have this huge gas tank, okay? Additionally, there are some advantages. I mean, aluminum it's not a critical raw materials. Right now, I will show you later, there is a possibility of produce aluminum without emitting CO2. There is no toxicity. I mean, all of us, we have tons of aluminum around and nobody worry about, okay? This is to give you an idea, this usually taken, but 1 cubic meter of aluminum is the amount of energy needed to power up a nice countryside house for 1 year. Nobody would complain about having a 1 cubic meter of aluminum in his garden, okay? 1 terawatt of aluminum is equivalent to have 7 meters of 1 terawatt hour in aluminum is equivalent to having 7 meters of aluminum under a soccer field. Nobody would complain about having aluminum under the soccer field, okay? So the social acceptance of aluminum would be extremely easy. Okay, so the ground occupation we need, remember the number of gigatesla I mentioned before. I mean, if we go for aluminum, we only need 6 gigatexas Tesla factories, let's say the volume to store enough energy. Okay, so I was mentioning that aluminum can be produced without generating CO2. Actually, this is mostly not true now, because still the old process is used, and this actually employs carbon. So to produce 1 kilogram of aluminum, you are burning 1 kilogram of carbon. But the development of what is called the zero-emission CO2 is going very well, and it will be mandatory anyway in Europe very soon. The European producer, and still Europe produces quite a lot of aluminum, will be forced to go to a CO2-free production in the next few years, okay? And it's not a big deal, because actually what you have to do is to replace the R-carbon anode with a metal anode. And this is possible, and then what actually you emit when you produce aluminum is pure oxygen, which is definitely good. No perfluorochemicals will be generated during, because the perfluorochemicals are actually forming when the R-carbon is burning with a lot of fluorine around. So this will be a rather clean approach, okay? And these are pretty good numbers, actually supplied by a company that is developing these carbon-free aluminum production plants in the Northern Europe, okay? That these plants will offer a 20% less energy. They can actually take the power whenever is available. They're going to be much more flexible, which is important, because actually they can take up the extra renewable energy and produce aluminum, and they don't really need to keep up the production continuously, okay? They will use less space, substantial saving on investments, and maybe reduction of 50 to 30% of the operational cost. So aluminum is definitely a super interesting approach. And actually, how can we regenerate energy out of aluminum? I mean, there are mainly two approaches. One is the thermodynamic conversion. So you just react aluminum with water at a certain temperature. And what you produce, it is actually alumina oxide plus hydrogen. Or you can assemble a primary battery cell in which you actually electrochemically burn aluminum with oxygen. So this is an aluminum air cell working only in one direction. Okay, initially we focused on the thermodynamic converter because it's kind of, from the engineering point of view, is much easier. The only requirement to make an industrial plant employing this cycle is the development of a specific fluidized bed reactor in which practically you can run the reaction of aluminum powder with water to produce hydrogen and heat that then can be employed to generate electricity. And we even developed a model for, this is to convince politicians and industry in Europe. We developed a model for electric vehicle charging station for the highway. So the model is targeted on 4 megawatt power, okay? And you can either produce 100% practically electricity and maybe, or if needed, 15% of the energy, it's produced as hydrogen, just in case that electric vehicles will develop. Okay, and it's very simple. I mean, you get renewable energy, you use the decarbonized Oil-roll process, you generate aluminum, then you can transport aluminum easily everywhere. Then with this aluminum, you can produce hydrogen electricity, or even additional electricity for grid flexibility. And then the alumina which is produced is re-injected. So it's a very circular process. At the beginning there will be obviously new material coming in, but once the system is running, then there will be no need of new materials, okay? So this is fully matching the target of recyclability. And here we compare the efficiency of the system, okay? Using aluminum as energy carrier and aluminum wet combustion combined with a steam turbine, a gas turbine, a solid oxide fuel cell. This technology exists. There is nothing to be done. We calculated that we can achieve 35.6%, which is better than, for example, a combination of PEM electrolyzer and a PEM fuel cell. Okay, so it's definitely an interesting approach and much better than many other approaches. Okay, but still, I am an electrochemist, and then I said, okay, I want to try to go for a primary aluminum oxygen battery. Okay, and this was actually funded by, it's an internal project funded by KIT. And we worked on the electrochemical conversion. So when we started, actually, we were definitely not the first working on this. I mean, this is well-known chemistry that has been studied. And the main problem of aluminum air cells is that the performance fades upon cycling. And in particular, there is a huge fade of voltage during the operation. Okay, and everybody was kind of indicating that the problem is due to the fact that the aluminum metal here, the aluminum air electrode gets stuck, but also the aluminum metal, get covered by aluminum hydroxide, which inhibits the reaction. So we got a little bit deeper in this. We tried to investigate what is the role of aluminum hydroxide and the mechanism of voltage and capacity fading. And these are the tests. So what we did, we actually use a fresh electrolyte or a semi-saturated electrolyte with aluminum hydroxide, or a fully saturated electrolyte, and you see that actually the presence of the aluminum hydroxide in the electrolyte is depressing the voltage. I mean, we don't want to go in this direction here, we want to go down, okay? if we do a discharge in a full cell, aluminum air cell, you see that if we have a fresh electrolyte, we get pretty stable performance, but if we have a saturated electrolyte, definitely the performance is reduced. Okay, so but what this means actually that it's not the aluminum hydroxide deposit on the electrode that it's affecting the performance, but it's more the aluminum hydroxide dissolved in the electrolyte that affects the performance. And as a matter of fact, we investigated the aluminum electrode after cycling, and we could not observe any aluminum hydroxide deposit on the aluminum. And by XRD, we only see aluminum metal on the aluminum anode. So definitely this was not the problem. And then we kept doing the investigation. We did some impedance measurements. We saw that actually the performance, so the ohmic resistance is mostly associated with the amount of aluminum hydroxide dissolved into the electrolyte. And we came out with the point that what is affecting the performance of the cell is the fact that aluminum hydroxide is formed into the electrolyte, and this is leading to the consumption of OH minus via this reaction. And obviously the fact that we remove OH minus from the electrolyte is decreasing the conductivity and then reducing the performance. Okay, then we investigated this further. We did some study with static electrolyte or stirring electrolyte, and we realized that most of the problem actually, most of the overvoltages growing during the discharge are associated with the diffusion of the species into the electrolyte. Okay, this was easy to identify because with the stirring we could see this. Okay, and then it's clear that the main point was to get rid of aluminum hydroxide from the electrolyte. So we developed a process which is rather simple, because we discovered that if we the solubility of aluminum hydroxide changes quite a lot, going from high to low, from 50 to 20 degrees centigrade. So if we have a fully saturated solution here at 50 degrees centigrade and we let it cool down, the aluminum hydroxide is low in depositing, and it's pure aluminum hydroxide, so it can be re-injected in the production of aluminum, which makes then sense for the circularity. So this is not a big issue. We also found a way, and this is the most important discovery we made, we found a way to speed up this precipitation. So we saw that if we don't have any seed in the solution, then it takes forever. There is a long lead time before aluminum hydroxide starts to precipitate. But if we have already a little bit of aluminum hydroxide dust in the electrolyte, then the precipitation is much faster, okay? And actually, after about 20 hours, we can get already a substantial reduction of 24 hours. We can get more than 50%, more than 50% reduction of the aluminum hydroxide. That is more than enough to run the cell properly. Yeah, that's a further demonstration of what I said before, that if we can actually get rid of the aluminum hydroxide, precipitate the aluminum hydroxide, the conductivity increases very rapidly. Okay. Okay, and these are results. Again, so here is half cell. We are only measuring the voltage of the potential of the anode. And you see that with a blank electrolyte, obviously we get the fresh electrolyte, we get the highest voltage possible, which is what we are looking for. With the fully saturated electrolyte at 50 degrees centigrade, we get a very much lower voltage potential out of the electrode. But if we let it rest, this electrolyte, for 24 hours and we reuse it, we almost gain the same electrode potential as with the fresh electrolyte. And the same is also confirmed using a full cell. Yeah, and this is a further demonstration of this. Again, we every 8 hours we consume the aluminum, full aluminum strip, okay? So we load one strip, we oxidize all of it, then we load the second, the third, and you see the performance decrease substantially. But then when we change, when we inserted the fourth aluminum electrode and regenerated the electrolyte, then the performance goes back to the original. And if we keep doing it, we still get it. So demonstrating that we can actually run this process forever, as long as we let the electrolyte rest for some time. Sorry, I went in the wrong direction. So some performance, we actually have seen that we can optimize the performance, we can optimize the rest time for the electrolyte to get desaturated, in a sense. I forgot the animation before, okay. But this is actually what I want to show you, the performance. We see that the best performance can be obtained given a certain current to optimize the conversion efficiency and the energy efficiency. So 50 milliampere per square centimeter, it is actually the best current that allows us to get the highest specific energy out of the system, of the battery, of the primary cell, 4.29 kilowatt hour per kilogram. The regenerated electrolyte works pretty fine, so we don't need to trash the electrolyte. We only need to let it rest for some time, so we can have a big tank and let it rest. And also that our prototype, we made a small prototype, outperforms every other reported in literature, but we had also to admit that the overall round-trip efficiency of this system is lower than the thermodynamic one I showed before. Okay, so we are still working, trying to optimize even further to increase even further the round-trip efficiency of this aluminum air system. Consider that this is a primary cell. Most of the publications in literature are going for secondary aluminum air, but this is really a nightmare. If you look at the round-trip efficiency of these cells, it's like 5%, 6%, doesn't make any sense, okay? Finally, and this is where everything started, but I have to hurry up because I see that I'm getting long, as usual. Sodium seawater batteries, maybe some of you have heard about it, because these were actually, I mean, my work in this field, it's still not, we did not get as far as UNIST did, Professor Young-Sik Kim, but it started from a collaboration with him. As I mentioned before, I mean, seawater is one of the most abundant, and it's also the reason why I got in touch with Young-Il. Seawater is one of the most abundant chemicals in the earth, okay? It's very easy to achieve. At KIT, we developed a slightly different system than, we actually managed to get a patent on it. Based on previous knowledge, practically we supply seawater and external energy on the cell. Here we have a kind of carrier, which is biphenyl. This is not new. But then what we propose is to have a second unit in which the sodium can be plated as sodium metal and then taken out of the cell and stored forever, okay? And then when you need energy, you actually put back the sodium metal in this cell and let the cell working, and then let the electricity being produced. Well, this full concept has not been patented before we did. We hope that this is true. We will see. Okay, this is the proof that we can actually do it. So this is what happens during the charge, so the sodium accumulation. We start applying voltage. We get at the beginning the sodiation of biphenyl, and when all the biphenyl is fully sodiated, then we start getting sodium metal production. Additional to this, chlorine is also generated, with, especially in Germany, is a precious chemistry because it's widely used by German chemical industry. And then the discharge of the cell, then it's the opposite reaction. Does not involve chlorine though, but makes use of oxygen. And you see that actually we can have a super high capacity, 45 million per hour per square centimeter, which is definitely a good number, and demonstrate that once we accumulate sodium, then we can use it. For example, we need water to use it. So in the desert it would be a little bit difficult, but for marine transportation and onshore and offshore power generation is definitely appropriate. I keep going in the wrong direction. And just to complete our work, because now I'm in Italy, so in collaboration with the University of Perugia, we developed a scenario for Sardinia. I don't know if any of you has ever heard of Sardinia, but this is considered one of the most beautiful islands in the world, okay? And it's very nice. To go there in vacation in summer, you must be extremely rich, otherwise you cannot afford. And this was practically, let's say, developed in the 60s, 70s. So in more or less the same period of Korea development. But right now they have a few problems. So they have no natural gas network. So there is no, all over Italy there is a pipe going, carrying gas. But Sardinia is not connected. They have a rather old energy infrastructure because it was built like 50 years ago and is still the same, okay? But they do have a huge potential for renewables. They can produce a lot of renewables. So the whole island consumes about 23.5 terawatt hour per year, which is not that big if you consider. So in terms of, and they could do very well with wind and solar, much more. They have much more than what they need actually. And to be safe, they only need about 4.4 terawatt hour on storage to make through the next year, the next winter. And the seawater battery would just be perfect. The seawater batteries would just be perfect there because they have much higher volumetric energy density than compressed hydrogen or the liquid hydrogen, if you consider sodium metal. They do generate, they have high energy efficiency. So in this case, thanks to Yonggil, actually, we could demonstrate much more than 70% energy efficiency on the process I just described, okay? Chlorine production is definitely good, okay? But the most important, there has been a shift of these two, sorry. The most important point is that actually during the storage, we would produce about 131 million cubic meter of desalinized water, which for an island are extremely important in summer. And during the discharge, we could generate about 57,000 tons of CO2 trapped as sodium carbonate, which means about 36 grams of CO2 per kilowatt hour of stored energy. Okay, with this, I want to end my presentation saying that, sodium and other abundant, aluminum, sodium and other abundant metal-based energy system can actually help addressing several and rather different energy storage issues. In terms of sustainable transportation, definitely, which is an existing and very fast-growing market, okay? Sodium seawater batteries can be used for marine transportation, but also for the delocalized power generation for the EV charging station, because it's anyway much easier to transport a barrel of sodium than 6 barrels of liquefied hydrogen, or no, what was it? 3.5 barrels of liquefied hydrogen, or 6 barrels of hydrogen compressed at 700 bars. The tank that was filling the hydrogen gas station close to my office in Germany, the truck weight was about 12 tons, and the truck was carrying less than 1 ton of hydrogen. This is the most inefficient transportation of energy possible, okay? It's not because the truck couldn't do, it's because the volume of the gas tanks was so huge that you could not fit anymore, okay? And for the future, which is the energy storage, huge market perspective, what we are talking is about 10% of the oil market every year, okay? It's a lot. Definitely stationary energy storage, sodium seawater batteries, but also seasonal annual electrochemical and energy storage via reactive metal. My preferred is aluminum, but we could consider also other metals can be considered. Okay, with this I close. I would like to, obviously most of the activities I've shown were done in my former affiliation, Helmholtz Institute. Yongil, are you there? Are you sure you're not there? Because this is not brand new. I selected the old one so with a chance that you were in. Okay? Then my present group at the University of Rome, where we have a small project funded by the Italian government on sodium seawater, and my long-term collaboration with the University of Perugia. And thank you for your attention.
오늘 참석해 주셔서 너무 감사드리고요. 여기 그 교수님과 함께 오늘 참석해 주신 강의 들어주신 분들하고 사진 촬영 있을 예정이니 모두 이 강단으로 나오셔가지고 사진 촬영 해주셨으면 합니다.
질문 같은 건 안 받아요?
네?
Maybe they have questions, I guess, right?
혹시 질문이 있으신 분 혹시 있으실까요?
Oops, sorry. You have a question? Okay, then I will use this and you can use that. Or maybe you can ask.
Okay, thank you for a wonderful presentation. I'm working in the Department of Mechanical Engineering. So, this is not my private opinion. Some people say the electrical vehicle is really like a green vehicle, or it's a really green energy transportation way. So
Yeah, this debate is going. I mean, clearly to make the electric vehicles as well as to produce battery, these are not green processes. But the fact that they are not green, I mean, first of all, to be fully green, we should just do nothing. Okay, this is clear. But since we want to live in a comfortable way, we have to do something. Right now, the greenness of a process, of a production, whatever, mostly depends on the source of energy. And right now, source of energy is not green, but it's getting greener and greener. If you look at the electricity production in Europe, it's really the renewable energy contribution is increasing very rapidly. Okay, so it's clear that this has to go. Definitely, we need to go towards solar photovoltaic. We have to go toward wind. There is no doubt. But this is going. I don't know in Korea, but in Europe, it's going very quickly. And it's not a big issue to achieve by 2050 the energy production, the renewable energy production we need. The problem by 2050 will be to make this energy available when needed, and not when the sun is shining or the wind is blowing, okay? But, I mean, there will be always some questions. If in Italy, for example, till a few months ago, they didn't believe that electric cars would make it. But now they are seeing the numbers in the rest of Europe, and they are also reconsidering everything. I do have a hybrid electric car, and I'm very happy.
okay, I just want to know your opinion about that, because the Europe also, I mean, several decades ago, they say the diesel energy is also like green diesel, like something like that. So after that, they changed their mind, right?
Yeah, because they realize something which is very important. Okay, I am in strong contact with the Italian oil company. Okay, and for about 4 years they have been saying, "Oh, we can do biofuel for everything." Then I took off I have a slide for this, but I don't have in this presentation. So first, the claim that biodiesel is not polluting, it's a claim, because at the very end you don't use bio waste. To make biodiesel you need corn, and to produce corn you need to use the land and use a lot of water resources, much more than what you would need to make photovoltaic panels, okay? Much more, every year. So right now, even the Italian oil companies stopped saying that we can make biofuels. They say we will make biofuels, and these are needed for aircrafts. Because right now, it is clearly impossible for the present technology, it's to make non-fuel powered aircrafts. So this is what they are doing. Right now they are qualifying biofuels only for aircrafts mostly. Okay, I mean, maybe small electric aircrafts are feasible, but I think the jumbo that goes from, that will bring me back, I mean the big aircraft that will bring me back to Europe in a week, electric is going to be tough. Okay.
Thank you for your answer.
No problem. No more questions? Then we go for the, yes. But you need to get the mic.
Hello, I am graduate student for Gachon University, and I have a question for you. Professor told us that ESS is going well because of it is eco, but I think that ESS is going good is the reason for policy of the government, and I think that fossil is better without policy. Is it ESS is meaningful without policies?
I'm not sure I understood your question. Your question is without the supports of the government, if the ESS would make it?
Yeah, is it meaningful?
I think some governments are starting to understand that if we don't make a change in our CO2 production, there will be some problems, okay? I mean, the fact that there was this guy, the president of this atoll in the Pacific Ocean, with the water at this height, so there is no land anymore in his island, is a problem. What is more important is Florida. I mean, it is calculated that Florida will be underwater in a couple of decades. It's not much. Okay, so they are starting to get scared. There will be always somebody coming and say, I don't care what's going to happen in 20 years. I only care what's going to happen in the next 5 years. But I hope that this will change. I mean, Italy is becoming a tropical country, and this is really strange. Now we have summers with temperature above 40, winters which are very warm. We don't need heating in winter anymore in Rome. This is ridiculous. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, it was damn cold. And this will get bigger and bigger. Hoping that there will not be big crisis, because I mean, the Russia-Ukraine crisis has been a big problem. Actually, the CO2 production has increased substantially. Okay. But if you consider countries like Italy, in which the health is granted by the government, for example, I mean, the fact that the environment is becoming more unhealthy is also a big cost for the government. Okay, I mean, you have to look at everything. I don't know how it works in Korea.
I study industrial engineering. So my question is, what do you think? What is the most helpful metal except aluminum, and reason?
The second most helpful?
Helpful metal except aluminum.
Except aluminum. I think it's iron. Because, I mean, zinc, it's only slightly more abundant than lithium, okay? Actually, I think it's sodium, the second best. The third one maybe is iron. The point for iron is that there is not an industrial process existing to produce iron. The only one that we have now is the carbothermal reduction, okay? So you need to burn a lot of carbon, and this is generating a lot of CO2. Or you need first to produce hydrogen and then produce iron, but then you have one step in the middle, and you're losing a lot of energy, okay? Aluminum is perfect. Sodium is also good because you go directly from electricity to the metal. It's a direct conversion. Any additional step in the middle, you lose in efficiency. So if you can find a way, for example, to directly reduce silicon oxide to silicon, this is great. This is even better than aluminum then, okay? But we need to work on this, okay? Good, thank you guys.